He is part of the Davos agenda. He's just every bit as radical as Trudeau. The only difference is he wears navy blue socks rather than polka dot socks.
It's nonstop here, folks. Welcome back to Moose on the Loose. My name is David. Today we've got another one of Justin Trudeau's rats abandoning the ship as it sinks. Another Liberal not seeking re-election. We've also got an interview with Jordan Peterson and Pierre where they really dig into a lot of stuff here. This is a great interview. I'll show you a few clips from that. It's among some other stories. Let's jump into this. I'm going to play just two small segments here. I'll link it up at the end of the video if you guys want to check it out. It's a great watch, the whole thing. There's two segments here, though, where Pierre gets really passionate about talking about Canada and what he's going to do for Canada and his mission forward. And I think it's the most important parts of this.
I want to talk about two things. What do you think is going to unfold? Well, even in January, I mean, once Parliament reconvenes, and what you expect from Trudeau in terms of his political action, then what you expect as the Liberal Party tries to reformulate itself.
My plan is pretty clear. We're going to cut bureaucracy, cut the consultants, cut foreign aid, cut back on corporate welfare to large corporations. We're going to use the savings to bring down the deficit and taxes and unleash the free enterprise system. We're going to repeal C-69. That's the anti-energy law. To cause a massive resource boom in our country and make it attractive for business to do the value-added work here in this country. So part of it's going to be growing out of this mess. You know, if you take a the debt to GDP ratio, you have the denominator has to grow. And that's why we need a bigger, more powerful GDP that can fund our country and diminish the relative size of our debts. We're going to bring back a monetary discipline to bring down inflation, stop the money printing, and we're going to incentivize the municipalities to get building. But it's going to be a big fight with all of these things because there are so many vested interests that will be trying to hold us back. So many small economic groups that have profited off the status quo. They will be fighting against me, and I'm going to have to put out a call to Canadians that they have to stay politically active. They can't assume that simply by voting in an election that everything is going to, all the problems are going to reverse instantaneously. I will need people to put pressure on the Senate to adopt my economic reforms. I will need people to put pressure on their mayors and local councillors to get out of the way and let us build homes.
It's very interesting. He's going to need us to put pressure on both those situations. Justin Trudeau stacked the deck in the Senate. He's put in so many independent senators who are not independent. They're liberals. Something like 90 out of 105. It's a very high percentage, 85% of the Senate now. So this will probably be one of his biggest hurdles he has to deal with. Also dealing with provinces who don't want to make changes that for the betterment of Canada.
I will need businesses to actually do their part. I mean, our corporate Canada is so completely incompetent when it comes to politics. They're going to have to start to fight for the policies that are good for their workers more aggressively. And I've said that to them. They need to fire their incompetent lobbyists and actually go to the people and make the arguments for the reforms that I'm talking about.
And are the businesses that you're talking to, these are larger businesses, I presume, do they understand your concerns? Are they on board with your suggestions?
They're starting to understand because they know that what they have been doing hasn't worked.
Well, the energy companies have been towing the green line. Well, it seems to me to be a very bad strategy.
They're idiots. They're complete idiots. The big five oil companies in Canada have idiot lobbyists. They have brilliant workers, incredible workers, but idiot lobbyists. And they've been trying to suck up for the last 10 years and did nothing to support the right policies in the prior years. So that's going to have to change. The developers are going to have to inform people in the cities why housing costs so much. You know, how is it possible that Olivia Chow can raise development charges by 30% and nobody in Toronto knows about it? Well,
I love he's bringing this up. Olivia Chow's absolutely destroyed Toronto. I'm often showcasing clips of her stupidity on here. She's got to go too.
Because the builders have not made it known. And And so the builders take the blame when the housing costs go up. I mean, sorry, you have to actually, politics is a participation sport, not a spectator sport. So our business community is going to have to step up and make the argument for these changes, or I will come up against a lot of political barriers. So my message to everyone is, God willing, I will triumph in the election. But the people who want the changes that I'm talking about are going to have to stay politically active to push them through and over the finish line.
Yeah, so he's going to need our help to do so. I'm not surprised he's coming out with this message. He knows full well that it's the will of the people that gets things done. This next segment here, Jordan Peterson asks him about when's the election coming, will it happen during a leadership race, all this kind of stuff.
A Trudeau 2.0. And so there would be a leadership race. God knows how long that would drag on for during...
You think approximately in March, no earlier than March as far as you can foresee?
Yeah, probably. And during which time we'd continue to flounder and twist in the wind. And by the way, the liberal media is all saying, well, surely you wouldn't want to trigger an election during a liberal leadership race. Excuse me, the Canadian people are not obliged, 41 million people are not obliged to wait around while this party sorts out its Like, these guys could have got rid of Trudeau a year and a half ago. They knew he was a disaster then. And now they say, well, we're low in the polls, so we have to get rid of him. Now, you didn't care when he was just depriving single mothers of food for their kids, or doubling housing costs, or unleashing crime in neighborhoods across the country. But now you're really concerned about getting rid of him because your poll numbers are down and you want to keep your job. Sorry, that's not a good reason to paralyze the entire country, in the face, by the way, of a major negotiation with the incoming U.S. president, who enters with a massive and powerful mandate, and a man who has proven that he can spot weakness from a mile away.
Yeah, this is so on point. What a great little speech there by Pierre, calling out the Liberals for exactly what they've done. They could have done this a year ago. They could have done this 2 years ago. It's because all these rats started to see the water coming into the ship sinking, and all the rats are jumping out now. They're only waiting till the absolute last minute. You'll see that here today with Marco Mendocino, who's now also one of the rats jumping out of the ship. It's too little, it's too late. The only Liberals we can actually point to that we're saying this stuff over a year ago, Wayne Long. Like, who else? Is there anyone else? I think Wayne Long is the only one. The only one who say, okay, that guy has a little bit of credibility. He knew Trudeau needed to go a long time ago. He's the only one who's brave enough to say it. All the other ones are greedy little rats looking for that little bit extra cheese while Canadians suffered.
So the country should not be forced to wait for the Liberal Party to clean up its own mess. They've had plenty of time to do that. What we need now is certainty. And the only way that can come is through an election so the people can decide.
And so who do you see as contenders on the Liberal side? I mean, Freeland, I think, is going to make a run for it. But Carney, do you think he's going to throw his hat in the ring? Now, he famously rejected the opportunity to become Trudeau's finance minister.
After accepting it.
Okay.
Well, so the chronology that we're led to believe, based on sources who've spoken about it to the media, is that Carney agreed to the job. Trudeau went to Freeland days before she was to introduce her fall update and said, I'm going to be firing you to bring in Mark Carney. And then when that blew up with her unexpected premature resignation, then Carney looked at it and said, I don't want any part of this. And he crawled under his desk. And so he was happy to take the job when it looked like it was a clear path, but then when it was a messier path, he hid from it.
What's interesting about that is if Justin Trudeau went to Chrystia Freeland and face-to-face said, hey, I've got a strategy here, I want to work this out. The 1-2 position of me and you is not working. Canadians are hating us. I want to get Mark Carney in here. He'd be a different face. I want to move you over to the housing portfolio, also one of the most powerful portfolios here in the government, and did something like that face-to-face, talk to her with respect. But instead, what did Trudeau do? He went on a Zoom meeting and said, hey, I'm going to fire you, but I'm going to move you over to, U.S. government relations. It's some small portfolio that doesn't even have a budget for staff. So it's a big insult for her because she's getting moved from like the most powerful portfolio to one of the least powerful portfolios. Well, are we surprised by her reaction? She's human, I think. It just shows that Trudeau has charisma when it's speaking out loud to a large audience, not really individual people. He knows how to put on a facade, a big fake performance that he learned from his dad when he learned from drama class, but he actually doesn't have interpersonal skills. He's really bad at just everything. I mean, he couldn't even manage to work out some sort of plan or deal with his finance minister, who's his deputy. Like, the guy's a complete failed loser.
Why would have he decided to take that job to begin with? Because
It's a good question.
well, God, you can't imagine stepping into a more thankless role. I mean,
Who would want to
Carney
associate
already-
with these guys?
Well, Carney already has a reputation. It seems to me that if he has prime ministerial ambitions, he'd just wait for the Trudeau Liberals to cataclysmically degenerate even further and then step in as the savior.
Look, he's going to try and distance himself now, but here's the problem. He signed on as Trudeau's economic advisor. It's an official role he holds today. Now, he's going to make one of two arguments. One, he's going to say, yes, in fact, I was his economic advisor, and therefore I am responsible for the $62 billion deficit and the catastrophic growth and the rising cost of living. Or he's going to say, I wasn't really his advisor, I was just full of it. You know, he has to decide, was he lying to everybody when he claimed he was Trudeau's advisor? Or was he telling the truth? And either way, he's got a major political problem that he is now totally inseparable from the Trudeau record. He supports the carbon tax. He supports the attack on our energy sector. He told me in a parliamentary committee that he opposed Canadian pipelines, even though his company has invested in pipelines in the Middle East and in Brazil. You know, he is part of the Davos agenda. He's just every bit as radical as Trudeau. The only difference is he's got a nice banker's haircut and suit, and he wears navy blue socks rather than polka dot socks. But beyond the aesthetics, he shares Trudeau's entire ideology, and he represents the status quo.
I bet Mark Carney will just deny that, say he was just giving it financial advice, Trudeau didn't take it, and just move on, dust it off. That's probably what he's going to do. He's not going to take credit for that $62 billion, that's for sure. If we take a look at the comments here, it's like, I almost forgot what it's like to have a prime minister to be well-spoken, educated, knowledgeable, and respectful. I can't wait until Trudeau takes his long, long walk. This is the interview every Canadian should be watching. So refreshing to hear this. No word salad, no stuttering, no The fact that Pierre's already sure to be the next PM, yet still has no issue talking to Jordan Peterson for nearly 2 hours says a lot. I dare Trudeau to go on a nearly 2-hour podcast and explain how he'll get Canada out of this mess. I double dare him to do it without saying every other word like he always does. I'm 30% through this interview and I'm gobsmacked at the contrast between two intelligent Canadians versus the man-child PM and his WF minions. Next up, we got Liberal MP Marco Mendicino won't seek re-election.
Let's go to Ottawa now for some news that's just into our newsroom. Another high-profile Liberal MP will not be running for re-election. For more on this breaking news, let's bring in CTV's Judy Trin for more. So, Judy, what can you tell us? What are you learning?
Scott, what we're learning is that Marco Mendicino, an MP for Eglinton Lawrence and the former cabinet minister for public safety as well as immigration, is stepping down. He has said that he will not run in this year's election. In a lengthy statement that he provided to CTV News, he said that he was no fan of dollar amounts and fanfare of government announcements, but he did give us a clue as to the frustrations he was feeling and what led to this decision. He said it's the right time to do this for his family, and he says it is no secret that I've disagreed with the current direction of the federal government on our foreign policy vis-a-vis our deteriorating relations with the state of Israel, our inadequate handling of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and our enfeebled role in the Middle East. As a matter of principle, I have been consistently outspoken in my condemnation of the unjust targeting of the Jewish community. So, Scott, this is a man, an MP. Marco Mendicino was seen as a rising star within the Liberal Party. He was basically dropped from cabinet last year after his handling of the Paul Bernardo case. Serial killer Paul Bernardo was transferred to a medium security institution, and that was done done, and it was without his knowledge. He did not keep abreast of that file, Scott.
Yeah, the file sat on his desk for like months and he didn't read it apparently. This guy was prevalent in the Emergencies Act being invoked, all that terrible stuff that happened with the Freedom Convoy. So first off, let's just take a look at this. So Eglinton Lawrence, this is his riding. Obviously, he's not going to get reelected. So they like to pretend they're going out on their own decision, but it's like, he's not going to win. He has no chance of winning. You can see here on his X account, so this is the statement he released. It says, today I will not be seeking re-election, yada, yada, yada. What you'll notice in this, though, it says, like, when the Liberal Party swept to a majority government in 2015, I made a solemn promise to my constituents that no one would work harder than I on their behalf, etc., etc. So throughout this whole letter here, he doesn't thank Justin Trudeau. Most of these bootlickers will lick his boots a little bit. Oh, thanks to the Prime Minister and his courage and his amazing leadership and all this stuff. But he doesn't do that. Even you go to the second page, it's the same thing. Gratifying as it is, work as an MP is not always easy. It's no secret that I have disagreed with the current direction of the federal government on foreign policy as our deteriorated relations with the state of Israel. So he supports Israel, and him, just like Anthony Housefather, they both don't like what's happening with all the major support of Palestine and letting the people run rampant in our streets, block down major infrastructure, scaring Canadians. But both these guys, they're speaking up way too late. There's no courage here speaking up after Justin Trudeau is already 16% in the polls, historic lows. So he says here, I wish to close by expressing my gratitude to my Liberal MP and former cabinet colleagues. There's no word here of Justin Trudeau. So when you read this, it does seem like a bit of a middle finger to Justin himself.
Judy, with so much turmoil already for the Prime Minister, what could this latest departure mean for the Liberals and the future of the government right now?
Well, we know at least 16 Liberal MPs will not be running again in the election. We do know that in a statement from the Liberal Party, they told us that they have approximately nominees selected in about 132 ridings. But there are 344 seats, so they still have to fill those positions. We also know that their chances for a re-election, if you are a Liberal, are really low right now. They are.
Yeah, you can just stick like a rock in all those seats. You'll be fine. Nobody's winning those seats. Conservatives are going to sweep this clean.
More than 20 points. They have, some polls show them behind the NDP in tracking. So these are the issues. We also know that since December 16th, that was the day that Chrystia Freeland announced that she was stepping down as the finance minister, triggering a massive chaos within the party. Basically, she's staying on. She will run, and she'll most likely put her hat in the ring for the leadership. But there have been renewed calls and greater calls for the Prime Minister to step down. Since December 16th, the majority of caucus members of Liberal backbenchers are now calling for the Prime Minister to resign and for there to be a leadership race. And this is all happening in the context of the Trump presidency. He's going to be inaugurated, Scott, on January 20th, and that's a full week before Parliament even resumes to deal with this issue.
Just a couple of weeks.
This is very interesting because you've got Chrystia Freeland, who has the trust of a lot of the caucus, the Liberal caucus, but you got Mark Carney, who's more of the fresh face. He wasn't in the government. So if you put this to the Liberals, the current caucus, they would probably vote for Chrystia Freeland out of loyalty. But then if you open it up to the Liberal supporters and getting more input, you'd probably get Mark Carney, the guy with the experience, the Bank of Canada, Bank of England, fresh face. Either way, though, it won't matter. The party's tanked. The party is done. Like, it's borderline going to collapse. It may lose party status. They can hire a local clown for their leader. They could put a pineapple in the chair. It won't matter. You probably get more support out of pineapple because at least the pineapple wouldn't further destroy Canada. Marco is hardly a high-profile minister. Failed minister is closer to the truth. Another liar that won't be missed. The rats are jumping the ships. He should be in prison for illegal emergency act. Marco will always be known as a liar. Get his passport. Inquiries into the corruption must take place. Yeah, all their passports should be locked down until this is cleaned up. I mean, really, all the Liberals involved in all these scandals, they shouldn't be allowed to leave Canada until all the scandals are cleaned up and they're cleared to leave leave our country. There should be a no-fly for all of them because there's been so much corruption in our government. While it is disheartening to see that stuff, at least with that Pierre interview, we've got someone who can really change Canada around, turn things around. He's been the same man for 20 years. The essays he wrote, footage from back then, a man talking about peace, fighting for freedom. He's the same thing here today. That's something to be hopeful for in our country. We need hope right now because things are so bad and they just keep getting worse here. There's like more scandals coming up that weren't even cleared out or flushed out from last year, the end of last year. I guess the question is now, who's going to be the next Liberal rat to jump from the ship?